and then I will introduce the authors. I will request Dr. Prasad to kick off the session. Pustaka is an initiative by Hindu Center for us to read contemporary books together. So when we look at contemporary books, we always read them separately, we all have a separate understanding. But when we read our scriptures, there is always a great tradition of debating, satsang, and reading them together so that we can get understanding from gurus, from people who are more learned, who have looked into the scriptures more and more. So we want to bring that same kind of reading tradition into contemporary books as well. And that's our intention in setting up. We have a dear friend, Revati, who passed away last year, and she was very fond of books, and this is a dedication to her as well. So we hope to sustain this book club initiative through local authors, and we want to, because we want to get the initiative insights from the local authors. So we are hoping that the people who are in Singapore join us for these sessions, and that's how we make the book club more vibrant. But going forward, we also hope to build a community around this of people who come to our sessions and read the books together. We realize that it's not always possible for us to have read the books together, so we might call this a book appreciation. It's neither a book launch, but we can call it a book appreciation because we get a book appreciation of what is in the book. And nowadays, a lot of people don't read books end to end. So once you get an appreciation, then we can actually delve deeper and read the books. Rahul, Singh, and Galyna, Kogut, the authors, the young authors, I would say, have different professions, and it's very interesting how you thought of writing this book together, and you also have other initiatives around these books, I hear. So we would love to hear about it. Welcome to the session. Again, thanks so much for coming, and thank you to the audience for being here, because without the audience, there is no meeting as well. With that, may I invite Dr. Prasad to say a few words and inaugurate the book club.
Thank you, Shanti. Namaste and a very good. Namaste everyone, and a very good rainy afternoon. Welcome to the Hindu Center. How many of you, this is your first time at the Hindu Center? Thank you. We need more footfall coming into Hindu Center. So I hope that this is only the first of many steps that you take. Hindu Center was founded in, let me say a few words about the center for those who are new. It was founded in 1978. By a group of people who were concerned at that time about the proselytization that was taking place within campuses and schools. And so therefore they felt that lack of knowledge of Hinduism, lack of knowledge of our Sanatana Dharma was what was creating that opening to that conversion. So they started Hindu Center with principally to educate young people about our culture and our tradition and our heritage. So over time we have evolved because we now have the Maintenance of Religious Harmony Act, which makes it more difficult to proselytize. So our mission, current mission, which you can see on the wall there, is to help Singapore Hindus progress spiritually through the three pillars of Jnana, Bhakti and Seva. So all our activities are centered around these three pillars, and I don't want to take up time to explain to you the whole range of activities. But one of the newer activities under the Jnana pillar is the Pustaka book club. And as Shanti has explained, this is a new initiative, and the initiative is driven by Shanti herself, and also it is in memory of one of our volunteers and staff who passed away in August last year, Revati, because she was a book lover and she was also in charge of our book sales. So in honor of her, we said we'll start a regular book club. So thank you all for coming. And to launch the Pustaka book club, we have Rahul Singh and Galyna Kogut. And the book that they have written is the first book on the Gita written jointly by local authors. So this is a great opportunity for us. And I'm very glad to have them to be in the first launch session of the next session, by the way, will be on December the 4th at the same time, same place. So please log in your diary. We'll send you a notice a little bit later on. So I don't want to take up your time. Let's get straight into it. And with that, I'm happy to launch Pustaka Book Club. Thank you.
So first, I want to add on to what Dr. Prasad said. I also understand this is the first written book written by a husband-wife couple, which is great. It will be interesting to hear about the dynamics of how you wrote the book, but that's for another day maybe. But Dr. Kogut, you have a PhD from NTU Singapore, right? And you are researching into these pedagogies you have come across the Western and Eastern versions as well. So could both of you explain a bit about why you wrote the book and how you came into writing the book, your experiences while writing the book? I also read that you have gone through various rounds of verification with scholars about the book, and so it's been really interesting for us to hear about your journey from both of you.
Saying that this book actually is Rahul's mercy, because I have known I have a very long story of my relationship with Hinduism. I had a very I started my quests ever since I remember myself. I was asking questions like, who am I? Why am I here? Where are we going? What is there in the sky beyond the stars and all that? So, and I found the answers only much later, like if you consider that only in my around my teens and all there. So, and to me it was so like, yeah, so I got the answers and I was sort of like selfish, keeping it all to myself. And then, and then one day, Rahul, I think he heard about it. He was not, I think, very interested in this, and then he will tell you his own story. But he's a very good-going person. If he sees that something can be good for others, he will just do it. Yeah, and he apparently saw that actually there is a need for this book to others, just as it was for me, for him, for someone else. And he was like, why don't we just do it? And then he was the one who was like, sort of like pushing the cart, and I was there like, yeah, okay. But then I got involved more and more, and it was a very interesting process. So I passed it to Rahul, and he'll tell about his motivation and how it all came in his head.
Rahul, you are a banker. You are a banker by profession. And one of our first questions is this an autobiographical version? Are you the real Veshik? Did you have all these questions in your mind? So what drew you to write the book?
Sure, I'll answer that. So, in a sense, yes, I think you can call it a semi-autobiographical book, although obviously the characters are fictional, but they do exist in real life. So, I'll pick on from where Galyna left. So, one day actually I did meet Charan Saket, and then we had a discussion, and then in the course of that discussion, one of the things he mentioned is how karma is not you do good will happen to you, you do bad will happen to you. It's much more nuanced than that. He talked about sanchit karma, he talked about kriyaman karma, he talked about prarabdha, he talked about the difference between kriya and karma to begin with. So I come home and then I come and very enthusiastically home, and then I at like 11 plus p.m. midnight, just before midnight, to my home. And then I tell Galyna, Galyna, karma is not you do good will happen to you. And animals don't have karma. And then she says, हाँ जानती हूँ तो, which is basically yes, I know then. And I'm like, okay. Then I said, okay, interesting. Then I said, there is somebody whose lecture I attend. Why don't you come along and let's, you might like it. So the next time the person was speaking to a group of people, and I think Vikram attended some of those sessions. He's sitting right there. So Galyna came and this person was talking, and then in the middle of the session, he says something and Galyna raises her hand. I being a curious student, I always used to sit in front and there were the people, and she being more or less like a guest invitee, she was sitting at the back and she raises her hand, and then there was something which was said by the person about karma, and then Galyna raises her hand and says, well, it's not true that animals don't have karma, it's just that they do not acquire new karma, they still have their sanchit karma. And I was like, what just happened? Like, I thought that I'm trying to bring her to a place where she would learn something new, and then these two people have start having what in our tradition you will call shastra, which is basically, shastra is scriptures and artha is meaning. The discussion between the discussion of shastras, the interpretation of shastras, which I think it is a very beautiful concept, and only in Hinduism you can have that concept. There are many other religions where just questioning will get you killed, right? Will get you hanged, will get you beheaded. Whereas in Hinduism, our whole inquiry is based on question. We encourage and we invite you to question, cross-question, and go deeper into the topic. Anyways, that day passed, and then again, while we were coming home, and I asked, so how do you know all this? And then she told me, and this is like 10 years after knowing her, by the way, okay? So I asked her, how do you know? Then she told me that about a story, which I think she can narrate better. But essentially, the bottom line of that story is that she is, you want to tell that, or shall I tell that? Yeah, but very briefly I'll tell her. It's that she is born in USSR, which is officially an atheist country. You cannot bring Bhagavad Gita, Quran, or the Bible. If you have these, then you are likely to be jailed. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So we came to my own story. All right. So I spent some time in the USSR. So you've probably all heard about in the history lessons what it is. Some of you have seen that. Nobody knew what it was. So I am from there. Yeah, I was born there. So typically, if you think about it, it's something like North Korea, a slightly maybe better version of the current North Korea, where people can't choose what they. I mean, generally, yeah, on some matters you do have a choice, and like you can have certain things, but fundamental things, like philosophical things, you can't choose because there is an ideology, there is a philosophy which is, they came out from Marxism, materialism philosophy, and you're supposed to follow that. So if you are lucky or unlucky to be born there, yeah, this is what you have to follow. So you don't have a choice on. Like if you ask questions, who am I? They will tell you, you are matter, you're ashes. You die, you're burnt, nothing after that. Easy. You want to live with it, live with it. If you're not satisfied with this kind of answer, then too bad, So this is how it is. There was some, there was still underground Christian church. Some Muslims were also there, Catholics, Orthodox Christians. Catholic Christians and all that. It was very, very underground. Like, for example, my parents didn't openly explain to me such things, because if, let's say, tomorrow I go out to the street and say, oh, mommy told me there is God, and I am like, yeah, I'm God's daughter, then mommy will lose her job tomorrow, the day after, yeah, and papa also. So, yeah, it's like that. So I did, my mother is a math teacher. So my story was such that maybe when I was 4, when you remember yourself, when you start talking, basically we start talking when our second, we remember ourselves when our second signal system develops, right? When we start talking. When the language develops, that's when we can talk in sentences, that's when we remember ourselves from the childhood. So I was asking my mother, mommy, look at the sky, you know, like, and of course, at that time, ecology was much better. Sky is clear, you know, you can see the stars. Yeah, I'm like, mommy, what is there? And she's like, well, there's stars, different systems, like sun is a star, so there are different stars, there are other planets. Where all this ends, and she tells me it doesn't end. And I'm like, what? Yeah, so that was the first thing for a small brain to start to understand. And how is it that it doesn't end? So to me, I was asking this kind of questions, and because my mother is a mathematician, so technically I take her as my teacher. So she's sort of like, she's a scientist, right? That's why what happened later, I kept asking these questions, and then eventually, after many years, like maybe 10 years or something, less than 10 years, I got Bhagavad Gita in my hands. Like it was again underground yoga. So yoga is okay, because yoga in the USSR, they didn't really know that yoga can be, you know, different yogas. So you just do exercises. It's you know, it's yoga. You just twist your body. You just do this. You do, okay, yoga is fun, but definitely there was one KGB agent at every yoga gathering. Yeah, that is for sure. Any kind of gatherings, yeah, which is not like weird, not like sort of like Indian yoga. It's not typical for Ukraine, but in any case, my brother started going to yoga. He was like late teens. And over there, I think some smart, at that time it was already like big after Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada brought Bhagavad Gita into the USSR. He smuggled it, actually. Yeah, so, and it was smuggled, whoever could take it. So they reprinted it, they typed it on the copy, I don't know, whatever, some kind of a, the proto version of the copying machine at that time, and they were actually typewriting it, like trying to multiply it in multiple versions. So there was no pictures, there was nothing, not like, I mean, this book, it's black and white, it's like, it has got, that one, that book was like totally like a white collar newspaper, typewritten, like, you know, stitched together somehow so that it can be together, and then, yeah, and that was a copy of the photocopy of, I don't know what kind of multiple copies which reached me, and then I was like, and I was reading it, and I started getting interested, and there was some stuff about like action, reaction, then universal form. I started reading. The only thing I couldn't understand was Krishna. Yeah. So I was asking my brother, who's Krishna? He's like, I don't know. Then I can't ask anyone else because our mother doesn't know that we are sort of like reading this. Because my brother is going to some yoga class and she doesn't pay much attention, but of course if she comes to know that there is some kind of Krishna. But my mother told me that she knew about Ram because Ram is Ramayana, so it's sort of like ethics. What do you call it? Myths. Ihtihas. So it's like stories, yeah. So in her library in school, she saw some book about Ram. So then she knew about Ram, but nobody knows who's Krishna. Who's Krishna? Nobody knows. Yeah, so then I read the Bhagavan Vacha, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, who's Bhagavan, what Vacha. But to me, it didn't really, you know, like sound in it. But I started finding answers to my question. That's why, when you tell me like Gita, is it a religious book? To me, no. To me, it's a science book. Because I found the answers to my questions, what is the universe, why it's so big, why is it endless, and what are other things, you know, so this kind of stuff. So when I got the book, it actually helped me in many, many occasions. So I sort of like found the answers to my questions. I realize that I'm not just a piece of ashes. Because to you it might seem normal, but if you live, maybe some people who buy into this idea, maybe it's also okay to them, but I didn't buy into this idea. How is it that I die and there's nothing behind and nothing after that? So it was very depressing. When I realized that, actually, I was like very, very small. It was very traumatic to me. Yeah, so once I found the answers in Bhagavad Gita that we are actually souls and we don't die, we just go to another different form of life, it was very, very, very reassuring. Yeah, so, I mean, and that's how my journey started.
Yeah, so that's where the conversation started, and this is the story she just told me. I pretty much learned about it while walking back from that place to the MRT. So then we talked more about it, and then I said, so you knew all this, and you knew all this for a while now. But if you know something, or if you have something, and if you don't share, then that's selfish. Because if you have something, you should share it with others. And I said, then I told to her that now that I have gotten this knowledge from somewhere, totally independent of her, I want to share it. But I want to share it in a way that is relatable to people like me. Rather, I should put it this way, I'm writing the book for myself. There will be many millions of people who, like me, will go to whether school in Singapore or whether school in India, and they will learn the same thing, that you are a bunch of chemicals wrapped up in this membrane called skin, and then some chemical reaction happens in your brain, and that gives rise to consciousness, and then something happens. And I have had discussions about this with Nobel laureates as well, and nobody, by the way, knows what consciousness is. Forget life, right? So I thought, why not write a book which is written for so-called the inquisitive, logical, modern mind, which is trained in the modern way of science, which is trained in the modern way of understanding universe as a system of laws and human behaviors as a system of frameworks, because that's pretty much what you do in science or management. That's how you frame it. And then use that same framework to then talk about the Bhagavad Gita and introduce them to that. And the other thing was that, as she is saying, if you open the Bhagavad Gita and the first line says Sanjaya Vacha or Sri Bhagavan Vacha, just like if you were to read Shakespeare, English Shakespeare, you need to at least know the ABCD. So if you're trying to read the Bhagavad Gita independently, not everybody is fortunate to have a guru, how would you even build the pillars to have the ABCD to be able to read the Bhagavad Gita? So the idea of writing the book was that this is, as Galyna mentioned, this is not a book which is a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, of which you have so many. This is rather a book about the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, the very last chapter, the last line, what happens is the protagonist, Anveshak Jigyansu, is offered a very old Bhagavad Gita, which has gone down from tradition, by the other protagonist in the book, which is Charan Sakhe, and he is given the book. So that's why the title of the book is An Atheist Gets the Gita. So gets over here has a dual meaning. You get it, but you also physically get it. So the last chapter of the book is what is the Bhagavad Gita. That is not the first chapter. That is not where it begins. And symbolically what it is telling the reader is, now that you have understood the fundamentals, now that you have the framework, now that you understand the ABCD of the language in which the Bhagavad Gita is going to talk about. Like if you want to read the Bhagavad Gita, you definitely need to know what is Prakrit, what is Atma, what is Karma, what is Bhagwan. Unless you know these things, you can't really interpret. And in fact, the way I like to say what Bhagavad Gita is, I say that Bhagavad Gita is nothing but manual for life, which tells you how a jiva is you and I and everybody, interacts with Prakriti. Prakriti is everything other than yourself. You are also part of Prakriti, but from your point of view, you can say everything other than me is Prakriti or the environment. So how a jiva interacts with Prakriti in Kala, that means in time. And this interaction is governed by the laws of karma. And if there is a law, then there must be a law designer, and that law designer is Ishvara, or the supreme controller. So what I try to do in the book is, I try to explain these 5 concepts logically. And I'm saying these are the building blocks, these are the ABCD for you to then go and pick up the Bhagavad Gita. So that was by and large how we came to know about it. Galyna obviously is much more trained than me in this. So when I was writing the book, I had a plot, and the plot pretty much came out very, very quickly. But then I didn't have the scriptural backing. So I used to ask, okay, intuitively I think this is how it should be. do you know how I can back it up? Then Galyna used to go, yeah, this is in Charitamrita, this is in Katha Upanishad, this is in Ramayana, this is in Mahabharata. So I don't have that kind of training, to be honest. But for some reason she has read. So in a way, I designed the plot, and then I used to go back to her to ask, how can I put the right shlokas or the right quote the right scriptures here so that it's a foolproof. Like in a research, you do an honest work, right? You need to back what you're saying. So for that, I used to go to her. So in a way, it's a joint effort. It happens to be that we are married, which is maybe a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But when the book was being written, it was interesting. We had a lot of discussion back and forth. And somehow, I would put it this way, if she's an orange, then I'm the juice extractor, because that orange would have remained in that unless I had extracted it out. So I was trying to extract that out, and fortunately the book came out. Very long answer to your short question.
Thank you so much. Covered a lot of my questions, by the way. The way you explained it, you are actually drawing on several bits of information to tell the story first, right? So that you can lead up to the Gita. A lot of places from which there are reference to a lot of scriptures here from which you are drawing. It is very good. So the storytelling is quite masterful here. It comes out and builds up to that. The one question we had is for the usefulness of the book. And this was coming from everybody, right? A lot of youth now say they are free thinkers. So how do we encourage them to pick up the book? For example, my son-in-law is a free thinker.
Yeah.
So I want to give him the book.
Yes.
I bought the book. I want to give him the book. I want to make him read it.
Yeah.
So what do I tell him?
Give me the mic.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what to tell her.
But
So-
can I just
Sure.
Yeah, please go
can
ahead.
you just first of all just show the book and properly, because I haven't seen it, I have not
I'll
read
pass
it,
it to you.
and who is the publisher, and little bit about that, and
Sure.
little bit about her background, where what scriptures and what all you have read, and you said your PhD in what scriptures or all, yeah, little bit of that, so that we can place it slightly better.
Sure,
Because now
sure.
otherwise it looks like, because Shanti knows everything about you, but we don't know anything about you.
Sure. So, because I'm holding the microphone, I'll go first, if you don't mind. So, I'm born in Ayodhya,
Okay.
and I did my schooling in a nearby town called Lucknow, and then I got offered a scholarship to come and study in NTU. So I did my undergrad bachelor's of engineering here, worked for a while in banking. Then I went back to India to do MBA at IIM Bangalore, and came back and continued my banking career. So that's my background. Now, just because you're born in Ayodhya doesn't mean that you have opened the books. So right below where I live in Ayodhya there are no houses. There are only temples. In fact, every house is a temple. Literally, if you go to Ayodhya, you will see that people actually live in ashrams. And then there are roads like shop houses you have in Singapore, where people will sell books and paraphernalia for puja and all that. So the entire street where I live is basically cluttered by these small shops where any of the scriptures you talk about would be there, and in multiple languages. Yet I never opened them. Maybe it's because of the abundance. It's there, so you don't even notice it. And I also did not think that I have a need to open, because from my point of view, I was like, what is it that my schools and universities are failing to teach me that I need to open this book? See, you know not what you know not, right? You could be the best guitar player in the world, but if you haven't seen a guitar, how would you even know? So I never felt the need of opening any of these books, and without, fortunately or unfortunately, without opening any of the Indian scriptures, I still managed to land up in Singapore and get a very reputed scholarship. So yes, materialistically, maybe I didn't need it. But then, when I finished my MBA, fortunately, I met some people, one way or the other, and I'll even tell the name. So there is a person called Rajiv Srivastava. He is a private equity investor, and he has set up something called Artha Forum. So Artha again means both money and meaning in Sanskrit. So Artha Forum, the tagline is Modern Businesses, Ancient Wisdom. So there, the question who am I was actually not important to me because I was very convinced that I'm a bunch of chemicals wrapped up in the skin. So that question didn't even arise to me, which was a very fundamental question for Galyna. But the question which I was looking for answer was, is there an ethical way of doing business? Can you produce profit without exploiting people or damaging the planet? That question was important to me. So somehow in Artha Forum, they used to talk about conscious capitalism, they used to talk about simple living, high thinking, they used to talk about earn with integrity, give with compassion. Now those kind of concepts resonated with me. And I thought, yes, these guys are making sense. But the more they made sense, the more I realized over the course of time that they are actually rehashing some of our scriptures. So that's when I got excited that maybe there are some answers to the questions that I am looking for in these books. And then from there on, fortunately, I stumbled upon somebody, and as I said, the book is semi-autobiographical. So yes, Charan Saket does exist. He lives in New York now. Yeah, I did meet him. I'll talk about that later, but I'll just directly answer her question now. So to me, my inquiry about how to do business in an ethical way, believe it or not, got answered by the Gita, which is a very different inquiry from somebody who is asking, who am I? And with that, I'll pass it to you.
This is so wonderful. Yeah, I know why we wrote the book together, because yeah, I can continue now from here. So yeah, it just opened. I mean, every time I think about Bhagavad Gita or talk about Bhagavad Gita, I think that I'm very fortunate, because honestly, it's not that, okay, I wrote a book about Bhagavad Gita. I was actually fortunate enough to be able to say something to others about it. So I take it with this kind of perspective, you know. So to me, now I understand what actually happened, because Bhagavad Gita, I mean, I'm very, very convinced that Gita gives answers to all questions. Why did this happen? That he had this way of coming to this knowledge, and I had totally other way. Bhagavad Gita says that there are 4 types of people who come to me, Krishna says. Those who are suffering, those who are curious, those who are looking for absolute truth, and those who are looking for wealth, prosperity, yeah. So he was actually, I mean, this is like a clear way, he was saying that how to do business ethically. So that, I mean, there is this cohort of people who are looking at this kind of ways of, sustainability, ethical ways of doing things, and yeah, and they all came to Krishna, you know, they are all like bhakts. And also, I mean, not everyone is a bhakt, but many of them are. Even if you're not a bhakt, you're still looking for something there, you know. I think I was, difficult to tell me what I was like. I'm not sure if I was looking for absolute truth. Maybe I was, but I was more looking for myself, yeah. And definitely I was curious, like why the things are. So I was of different types. So, and it doesn't mean that the paths of those different types don't cross. So eventually, when Rahul tells me that, okay, in Ayodhya every house is a temple. You know, when I just started reading about Bhagavad Gita and all, somebody told me, oh, you know, in India, in Vrindavan, there is 5,000 temples. I'm like, how? How is it even possible? Then when I went to Vrindavan, then I saw that every house is a temple. Yeah, so that's how it is, you know. So, and to me, it's like, I don't know. I'm thinking that. I mean, I know that Krishna has his own ways of doing things, but it's like, oh my God, what he had so easily, I had to suffer so much, you know, through so much of quest to get to this. But everybody has got their own way. And coming back to your question about your son-in-law, I guess everybody finds. Everybody starts asking questions at their own time and pace, you know. So if he's not asking questions, if he is not interested, maybe he's not ready yet, or he doesn't need it yet, you know. So it comes, it's very...
I'll just add something. So, then I asked Galyna, like very astonished when I was walking back from that day, I said, so you knew all this, why did you not tell me? Then she says, you were not ready. And maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, why you thought I was not ready. the lady's question was more about your background, like.
So sorry, I went back to your question. So so I grew up basically, I mean, the USSR just broke down into pieces, and for some reason I always knew that I would be a teacher. So eventually I grew up.
And for some reason I knew you would marry a teacher.
Really? Yeah? Okay. Oh boy, trapped. Anyway, so I became a teacher, and then I was teaching in Ukraine. I came to teach in Singapore also, and then right now I'm working as an educational researcher. So technically I'm a weird Amo. Yeah, so I'm an Amo who was sort of like out of her own. I mean, I do also like, because my ancestors were very not staunch but very sincere Christians. Like my grandma was a very sincere Christian, Orthodox Christian. I'm not a Greek Catholic, so there's a lot of different denominations. So, and then my mom always had this, sincerity in her heart. Also, like my whole family. So I do remain. I was Christian also in childhood. Like they did it underground also, so that nobody knows. So they brought me 500 kilometers away to the relative's house where they Christianed me in the church, and the priest Christianed me, and then I have a godmother and a godfather. But you have to do it so that nobody knows in the place where you live. Yeah, so I'm technically a Christian also, because Christians is like Muslims. You're born in that family, so you're there. So you remain there. So they do certain things to you, and you sort of like you are denominated, and you remain in that like your whole life. Which I think for Hindus there is no such thing mostly, which I find is quite beautiful. Actually.
Yeah, we are very liberal. So if you come to and I mean it, if you come to our house, Galyna prays. So in our house there is what you would say in Singaporean term rojak, or in India khichdi of gods, right? So you have various Indian gods, and then in the middle there is some saint, and then there is somebody else, and there is some other saint. And I think. Okay, thanks. I think that pluralism, that idea of accepting, see the way we in Hinduism understand God is like if you show us Rama, you show us Krishna, you show us Shiva, you show us Saraswati, you show us Lakshmi. All of them are God, and if you ask the person who is praying that, they will say, yes, this is the supreme most. So how do you explain that? So I think it's a bit like, the concept is a bit like water, right? All of them represent water, but you can freeze them in one structure. So if, let's say, the aspect of Hanuman or the aspect of Rama appeals more to you, so you can freeze that water into that ice cube, which looks like Hanuman. So it's the same thing, but you can give whatever picture you like to it. So when we talk about Hinduism, I think that's another beauty of Hinduism, that if you come to India, I mean, many people have come to India from far and wide, and they have tried to preach their own religion and tell us about their philosophy, their way of life. So if you come to India and say Isa Masih, or you say Jesus Christ, we have no problem. We will say, yeah, Isa Masih Bhagwan Isa Masih, no problem. We have 33 crore, we'll add one more. We have no problem accepting that. So I think that pluralism of Hinduism allows multiple things. It allows us to see truth in multiple ways. It also allows us to appreciate that there could be multiple angles of looking at things, and it allows us to be inclusive. And it also allows us the ability to debate on those from various different aspects, and that's why in Hinduism there are predominantly we talk about 6 schools which have different philosophies, but all of them are trying to answer the same question. Now coming to your original question, who is the publisher? So publisher is Rupa Publisher. They are one of the biggest publishers based out of India, and it's funny enough how that also happened. So I had first approached Rupa for them to publish this book of mine, which they very respectfully rejected. And then I was like, okay, fine. They said this book somehow doesn't fit into their agenda of the books they are trying to look to publish now. And then after some time, when our draft was ready, so we tried to contact publishers, and then I reached out to them. And then fortunately they agreed. Just like in 3 or 4 days of us writing, they said, send us the whole manuscript. So again, it's providence that it happened, because the same publisher had rejected me for a different book. And you have to be, what do you call shameless? I don't know what. Shameless and persistent. Persistent enough character like me to then go and ask the same publisher, hey, by the way, I have another book. Are you interested?
The term is thick skin.
Yeah, thick skin. Yeah, that's the term. That's the term. So fortunately, that's how it happened. Does it answer you?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're lucky that second book was accepted. Many times 10 manuscripts may be rejected and 11th maybe.
I think I was also lucky in the sense that I've spoken to many people who have published book, and they have told that there have been publishers which have actually taken the manuscript and sat on that for a year or more and then told the person we are rejecting.
Correct.
Right? So I don't know how this happened. The other thing is, and I would like to highlight this, this book it took me 3 years to write. While this book, I don't know how it happened, but it's merely 45 days. We wrote this book in 45 days, at least the first version or the basic version. And the way I answer that is that, at least for Galyna it's longer, but from my perspective, it's like exam. You study the whole year to write the 2 hours of exam. So I think before this book came in this format, for 5 years I was learning so that I could finish this in 45 days. And I don't know how it happened. In those 45 days, my workload also became slightly lighter at work. It was COVID time, so I was saving time as well. Christmas time as well. And then the blessing was that a publisher like Rupa, which publishes people like Presidents of India, Chetan Bhagat, Ruskin Bond, to be kind of like a debut author and have somebody like Rupa publish you, it's always a great acknowledgement of your work. You get confident in your own work. Yeah, I'll pass it back to you.
Sorry, I think I didn't give enough introduction of the authors. My mistake. I was too excited to jump straight into the book. So,
But your question remains unanswered. I can answer.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I am.
so it's a very important question for us.
Yeah. So the thing is, even when I actually the book, there is a backstory to the book. So just when the book was it's like COVID 2020. Just when COVID started, we were getting our house renovated, so we moved to a new house temporarily. And in that condo, there were a lot of Indians, and somehow the discussion happened about Gita. And I said, okay, if you guys are interested, we can talk about Gita, and happy to do it. So the first it used to be Sunday. First 2 weeks, people came to house and we talked about it, and then there was a lockdown. Like nobody can go anywhere. Complete lockdown. And then we decided, okay, why don't we do it online? So then we repeated the first 2 online, and then many more people joined. And even in that lecture, I used to tell people that the purpose of this session is not to make you believe, or not to convince you, or not to convert you. The purpose of this session is, like in Hindi we say janna and manna, right? Manna is to believe, janna is to know. It's like the word gyan also comes from that janna as well. So the idea is, whether you believe in how do you believe in something, or you don't believe in something unless you know about it, right? So in fact, even in the book, there is a dialogue that happens between the two, where it is exactly answering the question that you're asking. So this young fellow, Anveshak Jigyansu, by the way, Anveshak means investigator, Jigyansu means curious, so essentially curious investigator. And Charan Saket, yes, I saw one of the questions you wanted to ask is why Charan Saket? So the real Charan Saket is Suman Chaki, so it's flipped the other way. And Saket because the other name of Ayodhya is Saket, and Charan because it basically represents feet. So it's my way of kind of acknowledging where I come from, and kind of saying that I got Siksha or Diksha from Suman Chaki. That's why I put Charan, which is basically your footsteps. So yeah, Siksha not Diksha. Anyways, when the two are having dialogue, this young fellow Anveshak Jigyansu, who is 25-year-old, high-flying banker, educated in top universities, he is saying the same thing to, he accidentally sees the book Gita, Bhagavad Gita in Charan Saket's hand, and he says, why would somebody like you be reading a book like this? And then Charan tells him, and he says, then Charan asks him, have you read it? He says, no, why would I need to? What is it that my universities and schools have not taught that I should read this book? And then Charan tells him, you seem to have a lot of opinion about something you haven't read, right? So that's the thing. So the book is actually written for people like your son-in-law, those people who are. It's like like in English we have a saying, bringing coal to Newcastle, right? Or bringing ice to Eskimo. No point me preaching this book to somebody who's already read the Bhagavad Gita. There is no point. The purpose of the book is to introduce it to people who are very unlikely to read the Bhagavad Gita, right? And that is why the title is a bit controversial. An atheist gets the Gita. Why would an atheist read the Bhagavad Gita in the to begin with, right? So that dissonance is on purpose, so that you get curious enough to at least pick it up. And then by the end of it, it's your choice. You want to pick it up, you don't want to pick it up, it's your choice. But at least give it a fair chance. That's the idea.
So the idea is first you know. So just read it just to know. And then
It's for anything.
Yeah.
Even if you say, I believe in God, right?
Yeah.
Before you believe, you got to know. Or you don't believe. Either way, right? Whether you have to have some basis of believing or not believing. And I think the basis of any logical person, the basis of that starts with knowing.
That's great. Please, let me invite the audience to ask questions.
Sorry. Do I need a mic?
No, I
Shanti?
think you
Yeah, I
just
don't
ask.
think
Yeah,
I need a
please.
But we are recording, so I think microphone would be better.
Oh, I see.
So then the voice
Okay,
gets clearer.
okay.
I think that one brings a bit of noise.
One suggestion is,
Okay.
Rahul, just whatever question is asked, you just
I can
paraphrase the question.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
I can repeat it. Yeah, I can repeat it. Yeah.
Yeah. My first observation is that the book is very readable. You pick it up. It's very reader friendly, very interesting to read. And I like the way you've contextualized it. And I think that makes it that much more easy to read. My question is, you talk about effort focused and not reward focused. Now that I've retired, I reflect a lot, I can accept this statement. But say when I was in my 30s and 40s, caught in my professional career, constantly the lesson plans had to be in terms of learning outcomes. What are the learning outcomes of your lesson plan? Secondly, when I was assessed, it was on performance indicators. What output, what did I deliver? So at that stage in one's life, how can one convince that the effort is what is important, and if you put in the right effort, the reward will take care of itself? How does one convince the younger generation?
So if I may repeat the question is asking when you are young and you are so focused on goals and the whole society focuses you on goals, how do you convince that, how do you get convinced that effort is important?
Yeah.
So, without a fail, whether I'm teaching in IIMs or I'm teaching in Singapore or I'm doing a book launch or a discussion, this question comes up.
Okay.
And a related question is, can you not have goals at all? I mean, that's the other question that comes up. That how is it even possible that you function without the goal? So I think you have read the book. It seems to me you have. So in the book we talk about this happiness equation, which says happiness is equal to attainment minus desire. So that's nothing but actually rehashing the very essence of the Bhagavad Gita, which is that you focus on your efforts and not on the result. Easy to say, very difficult to follow. It takes a lifetime to actually imbibe that. Let me try to attempt to unravel the equation and through that answer your question. So when we say happiness is equal to attainment minus desire, what we are saying is that you are happy, and if I were to do a survey here, everybody will ultimately say that, yeah, anything they do is because they want to be happy. Be it starting with what clothes you wear or why you came here. No matter what question you start with, you ultimately will lead to the answer that I'm doing this because I want to be happy. So when we say happiness is equal to attainment minus desire, I'll give you a very simple example. All of us have gone to schools, all of us have written exam. So let's say if you desired, and the key word here is desired, you desired to get 80 on that exam, and by some luck you got 90. So you attained more than you desired. you desired 80, you got 90. What's the emotion? You're happy. But supposing you got 70, then you're unhappy. And that's natural, that's human, right? But now, that's the very first level interpretation of the happiness equation. Now let's look at one level deeper. What is it that you can control? Can you control the attainment or can you control the desire? Right? Do you always get what you desire? Right? Is there anybody in this room who has always got the promotion they wanted, always got the car they wish they had, always had the house they wanted to buy? I mean, there's so many things that we desire. You can't control it. The only thing that you can probably control is the effort. And now let me explain that. So, it is also like when I teach this in some colleges, they will say, okay, attainment, happiness, attainment is desire. So if I put my desire to 0, then I'm always happy. Is it possible? In a human body, can you put desire to 0? It's impossible to have desire to 0. So what is needed is, and also if there are no desire, forget about anything, even the mankind itself will come to a standstill, right? I mean, let's be very honest, even the kids are born through desire, right? You have to have that desire, that passion for the next generation to come. So the interpretation of that is the following, that yes, you will have desire. How do you flip that desire to be more than just a selfish desire, so that it becomes a selfless desire? That's one. The other thing is that desire actually helps you set goal, right? Let's say if I'm a student and if I desire to be #1 student in the school, or if I'm working and if I want to be the #1 employee in my work, that's a very good desire to have in itself, if just looked at in that way. The problem is, if now instead of you controlling the desire starts controlling you, then what happens is that instead of you practicing to reach that goal, you get so bogged down by the desire that half the time you're just thinking about that, I want to be #1, I want to be #1, right? Whereas what you need to do is, you need to bairag, which is detach yourself from that desire and focus on abhyas. Abhyas is effort, something that you can control. So if a student says, I want to be #1 student in an exam, just being fixated on that will lead you nowhere. In fact, it will hinder your ability to be there. So once you have set that desire, once you have set that goal, you then have to focus on things you can control. There is a circle of input, there is a circle of concern. You can be concerned about being #1, never get there. Or you could start working on being #1. Now, related to that is, it's about destination and journey. So yes, your destination is to be #1. But if you are not enjoying the journey, if you are not enjoying what you are learning every day, if you are not finding juice in it, then the destination has no meaning. A, nobody can guarantee you if you will ever reach that destination. B, even if you reach that destination, then it's a hollow thing. You will be like, once you reach it, you will be like, oh, so this is what it was. Because you didn't enjoy the process. Now, coming back to what you were saying, that yes, while that might be okay, but at workplace, we are always judged by our effort, not by our effort, but by our outcome, by our result. Yes, that is true, but at the same time, there is absolutely no way for an organization to measure your effort. Right? Yes. They can only measure your outcomes. But if you think about it, in long term, whichever organization you work at, people do look at your effort. People do ultimately appreciate the amount of effort you are putting. Yes, they may have a very objective metrics to. It's more like a proxy. What they would do is, because they cannot see in a very objective way how much effort you are putting in, they will say, okay, this is the metric, you have to meet it. But you as an individual, if you're so fixated on that, this is what's going to happen. And that's a third level interpretation of the same equation. The same happiness equation also becomes the ethics equation. If you're so consumed by that desire or by that goal that has been handed down to you and you really want to achieve that, if you're a student, you're very likely to cheat in an exam because you want to be #1 by hook or by crook, no matter what. Every student who has cheated in an exam, every salesperson who has ever bribed, every CEO who has ever fudged numbers, It's because of that desire taking control of them. And in that same breath, I would say that people do notice your effort. If you are consistent about it, your results, a good manager will notice that you have put your sincere effort. And it's also to do with parenting, which I think Galyna can emphasize more on. When our child has put their best effort and still not gotten the result, that's okay. But when the child is not putting effort, that's probably not acceptable to us, right? As parents, I think that's where we are. You want to do that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, I'll agree to everything, Gita explains that very well. And also, it also says Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that an Atma, or what we call Jiva Atma. Jiva is basically the living entity, right? And Atma is the soul. So Atma is the particle which drives, the driving energy behind our bodies and consciousness. So Atma, Jiva cannot be inactive. So you just look at the child. There's a very good example. The moment the child opens his or her eyes in the morning, they start doing something. They just can't not do anything. They start, when they're very small, they just start running, they start playing, and you as a parent give them something to do. Because if you don't sort of like direct them, then they will just pointlessly run around the house, bang their head there, here. That desire, that activity is already ingrained. It's a propensity of the soul. So we can't be inactive. If we are inactive, it's not possible for a soul. So the effort will always be there, but it's very important to know what you're putting your effort in. It's number one. When you're a parent, you're directing your child. But once the child starts growing bigger, then they sort of kind of decide what they want to do, right? They choose for themselves. Then, as Rahul mentioned, for children, if they don't put effort, it's very sad. But it's also very sad, because you see, we have this kind of identification with our body and everything which relates to it. We sort of forget that we are spiritual souls. There is other things out there. We are very much enclosed into our small little cage or cave, where I'm in this kind of definition now. I'm an educational researcher. I have my son. I have my husband. I have this kind of environment, and I get very enclosed in that, But if we look slightly beyond that, we just have to do what we need to do, we can't really, if something doesn't come out, you can't just really say, okay, I'm going to kill others, or I'm going to kill myself because this doesn't come out. So, this kind of realization that you just do what you need to do, and even if you don't get what you have, what you desire, then you just have to move on, So it's sort of you come to terms with that. For the children, it's sad, when they didn't put an effort, it's bad. When they put an effort into that exam and they miss by 2 or 3 marks, then everybody feels so sad. You feel sad, the child feels sad, but then as a mother, you have to explain that, look, we really did our best. When you're young, it resonates with what you just said. In my workplace, I will be running around when I was in my 21 or 22, I just got the first job and something doesn't happen and I didn't get my appraisal. I was so sad, I was crying overnight, But now I know, like recently I had a situation when the work was just very, very stressful. So I was just thinking, I really can't. The amount of work is so much because the study is so huge that I don't know what to do and how to make things better. But I decided that I will just think what is the maximum I can do in this situation. And somehow things just turned out, somehow we sailed through, we pulled through, and then even if the appraisal doesn't come, this year, then it comes some other year. So, there are so many things, and like Rahul said, that there is also other ways how people appreciate your effort. Yeah, so it's not like we are not engraved. Not everything is not engraved in stone, we are humans, but I think the realizing who you are, and what is it like? everything boils down to your purpose, you know, like what you're realizing what is your purpose, what you're doing here. There is also this like in Gestalt, in psychology, in Gestalt, you have to sit and think what you're doing now, what you're feeling now, you know, what is happening now. So here and now is very important. So once you realize who you are, then this effort thing becomes, you just have to,
Natural.
yeah, natural, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll just add on to that a little bit. So I think when you actually hold your happiness, when your happiness is tied to those results, you're actually holding your happiness ransom to factors beyond your control. Whereas when you are sincere in your effort and you have that conscience that I am doing this with sincerity, that is where you actually, regardless of the result, your everyday becomes easier, right? Otherwise, there are so many things that drive you in all directions. And related to what you were saying about purpose, I would try to talk a little bit about dharma just very quickly. That dharma is basically your innate ability and what you are supposed to do. So, what I think purpose is that each of us have to find our swadharma, our own dharma, whether you want to be a doctor or an engineer or a teacher or whatever you want to be. So, in that sense, what I would say is purpose is nothing but identifying what your swadharma is, what your individual dharma is, and then aligning your kriya, your activities, or your activities to that dharma, so that there is no conflict between the two. So I think that's where, when you realize that this is my purpose and like this is what I want to do, then those, I believe you're a teacher, right? Yeah. I'll just come to you now. So when you realize that my job here is to educate the kids, right? Regardless of, I'm doing my best. I'm trying to be sincerely teaching the kids. That has satisfaction in itself. Whether or not my principal appreciated me or gave me the best teacher award, that becomes secondary. And in fact, every person that I've been fortunate to talk to 9 Nobel laureates, and I asked all of them, did you think that you will get the Nobel Prize and was this driving you? None of them said that I wanted to get the Nobel Prize. Not a single one. And by the way, after they got the Nobel Prize, they still continue to live. If they are professors, morning they got the news, they got the Nobel Prize, they still went to the lecture. Same as everybody else. To them it doesn't matter. These are external validation. We ascribe meaning to it. Somebody has a
Yeah, I
question.
had a question.
Can you just read some sections from
Yeah,
the book
please.
so I get a flavor of your ideas and Bhagavad Gita in your book?
Yeah, any section, can you please read?
I'll just, okay, any.
Yeah.
I just open right great.
You can tell us the page and we can also read, those of us who have the book.
The karma equation. Okay, page number 94.
Let everybody.
90?
94.
94.
Yeah, it's page number 94, the last paragraph.
When the soul enters.
When the soul enters the body.
So I just read out loud. Okay. Okay, can I start?
Yeah, please.
When the soul enters the body, it does so along with mind and intelligence, and thus a false ego is born. False ego is the juncture of spirit and matter. As the spiritual soul enters the material body, an illusion develops, which makes the soul believe that it is just this body and nothing apart from the body. This illusion is indeed very strong. Do you know of anyone who is not attached to this body? Is there a person who doesn't fear death? Have you ever met anyone who is not struggling to keep the soul and body together? It is not easy to let go of this mortal body. Even those who die by suicide fear death. They get so afflicted by their current situation and view their future with such hopelessness that they come to see death as an act of escaping their pain and suffering. This fear of death also gives us what is called survival instinct. We learn how to take care of our body and defend it against adversities. We eat, sleep, and even mate only to defend this body. Mating ensures that even when we stop existing, a part of us survives as our children. The soul's attachment to the body is very profound. This false identification of the self with the body and not the soul is called false ego or ahamkara. The combination of the eternal spiritual soul with the perishable material body is indeed the genesis of this false ego. What is even worse is that this sense of ego doesn't just stop at the body. I, aham, becomes me, ahamkara, and me becomes mine, abhimana. Ahamkara is the ego that makes us believe that we are the doer instead of nimitta matra, or the mere instrument in everything that is happening to us and around us. We start feeling that we have the supreme control over what lies in store for us, whereas the bitter truth is that we are merely one of the many factors in whatever results come from our efforts. We can control our efforts, but not the results. However, our sense of false ego makes us believe that we are the supreme doer. Ahamkara soon gives way to abhimana. The body adorns, clothes, and starts having a sense of belonging with the cloth, my cloth. This sense of belonging or abhimana keeps growing. We find partners and say, my wife or my husband. We have children with our partners and call the offspring my children. We acquire some wealth and say, my money. We get some job and say, my job. We become CEOs, presidents, or prime ministers and start saying, my company, my country. We start thinking of ourselves as the processor and forget that we are nimitta matra. This possessiveness has been compared to licking honey off the sword's edge. It tastes sweet, just for a moment, and then it is painful all the way. Our sense of self keeps ever expanding, from my body to my clothes, to my wife or husband, to my money, to my work, and the beginning of all this is associating one's identity with the body, or as opposed to the soul. We become very territorial about this ever-growing identity of self, protecting our body, our loved ones, our belongings. We are ready to fight over it. We fight to keep the body alive. We fight over property, and we fight over who should be the rightful owner. When someone encroaches on what we feel is ours, we feel violated. Our sense of ahamkara compels us to fight back. As long as we keep seeking external validation to establish our self-identity, we are entrapped in the false ego, identifying ourselves with body, with gender, with titles, with destinations, with caste, with nationality, or with our relationship with others, be it our boss or co-worker, brother or sister, father or mother, son or daughter, giver or taker, teacher or student, etc. None of these is our true identity. False ego means false identity or temporary identity. It is the view that I am this body, thin, fat, short, tall, male, female, black, white, and so on. Or that I am rich, poor, Indian, American, religious, atheist, student, teacher, and so on. The thin can get fat. The fat can get thin. The short can grow tall. The tall can lose some weight, some height as they grow old. The male can surgically become female. The female can get operated to become male. The black can become white. The white can become tanned. The rich can get poor. The poor can get rich. The Indian can take up American citizenship. The American can take up Indian one. The student can become teacher. The teacher can become student. The atheist can become religious. And the religious can become atheist. Thoughts, opinions, and feelings change all the time. Amid so many changes, who is the real you? Is there an unchanging reality behind all these identities of body, nationality, profession, wealth, or religious preference, which is not subject to the vagaries of time? Only when we look internally and realize the true meaning of self as soul have we really found our true ego, or true meaning of aham. So you mean our real identity is the soul and not the body? I asked puzzled. Absolutely.
That's really profound and nice.
So this is towards the very beginning when so the pace of the book starts very slowly, very innocently, and then it picks up. So over here it's a very generic discussion, but we revisit this concept later, where we talk about the panch koshas, the 5 layers, and how the body comes, and the 3 different kind of bodies: the subtle body, the gross body, and the atman. So there it talks about how the soul comes, and then what are the 5 layers, what are the 3 kind of bodies, how they match with each other. So it's called Annamaya. Annamaya is the one which is nourished by the food. Yeah.
Sthul Sharir.
Sthul Sharir,
Sukshma
which is
Sharir.
Sukshma, exactly. So then you have Vijnanmaya, which is the mind, right, or the intelligence. So if you look at it, at the end of this, there is this word Maya, which actually means illusion. Right? So anyways, there is a deeper discussion somewhere further down the pages.
Please, if anybody has any more questions.
Actually, it's a beautifully written book, and I think Shanti and I were discussing about, you talk about Paradharma and Swadharma and the Dharma Sukshma. Can you talk about that idea to us?
Yeah, so the question is, can you talk about Dharma Sukshma? Because to us, the most important thing in Bhagavad Gita is the samshaya, the doubt that he gets, and we all get it. And invariably, we all get doubts every day. So, how do we solve it?
So, the more I read the Bhagavad Gita, or the more I understand the Bhagavad Gita, it's very profound that actually, as Galyna says, and only now I realize what she says, that it answers all the questions, right? So, let's begin with this dharma, okay? And if I were to ask you, and I'm going to ask you, tell me what dharma is, and if you give me one word, and if you tell me in English. Yeah?
Duty?
Duty, okay.
Yeah.
Intent.
Intent.
Now, I'm putting from your book, it's the order which make things.
Well, I will come to that. We'll come to
Eternal
that.
order.
Yeah, I guess it's something similar, alignment with the
Alignment.
law.
Eternal.
Yeah.
What you're supposed to do.
What you're supposed to do. Any other meaning of dharma?
Righteousness,
Righteousness. Okay.
that which sustains.
That which sustains, yes. Any other meaning? I think we are talking to a very enlightened group. Now,
Which is done according to your conscience.
according to your conscience. But if you now go out in the street and ask them what dharma is, what is the first word you will get?
Hindu, Muslim.
Religion.
Religion.
Yeah,
Right?
religion.
That's the problem. Dharma is not religion, right? And related concept is Sanatana Dharma, but we will not go there. So dharma is not religion. That's the number one misconception. Okay? Dharma has nothing to do with religion. In fact, the religion itself is a beautiful concept. It comes from the Latin word religio, which means to connect. Now, connect what? connect the Atman to the Brahman, the man to the God. And the same concept is also there in Hinduism, but it's not called dharma, it's called yoga. Yoga means to connect, yoga. And again, you mentioned there are 4 kinds of yogas. There is Dhyan Yoga, there is Gyan Yoga, there is Bhakti Yoga, and there is Karma Yoga. And there will be a side discussion, I don't want to go there. But the idea of dharma, first of all, I want to clarify, is not religion. Then what is dharma? And some of you said, dharma is actually anything that maintains the world order, or anything that maintains the order of the universe. In fact, the definition of dharma comes in Mahabharata, where it says dharnat dharmam itehu. That means one that sustains is dharma. Sustains what? Sustains the creation. And the root word of dharma comes from this word dha. If you think about dha, dharan, right? Something that holds, dharan karta hai, Hindi mein bolte hain, right? Dharti also, which means Mother Earth, also comes from the same word dha, dharan, the same root word. Something that holds, something that sustains. Otherwise, the universe will disintegrate. Any activity that sustains is dharma. Okay, so far very good. Now, dharma has different interpretation depending on your consciousness. So let's talk about a very fundamental distinction. In our philosophy, we talk about Jad and Chetan. So Chetan is something that has consciousness, Jad is something which doesn't have consciousness. So for example, if I say water, or if I say fire, those are not conscious things, but they also have a dharma. So if I were to ask somebody, what's the dharma of fire?
To give heat and light.
To give heat and burn. You can take everything away from fire, but its ability to give heat and burn. Because if you take that away,
no more fire.
No, then it's anything but fire. Then it's the innate nature of something is the dharma. The innate nature of the fire is to burn. The innate nature of water is to make things wet, to flow. That's the dharma of the water. The innate ability of sugar is to be sweet. You can take everything away from sugar, but its sweetness. That's the innate ability of sugar. So at the Jad level, it's clear what dharma is. Now let's come to the Chetan level, the consciousness level. And as we know, there are various kinds of consciousness. There is degree of consciousness. So I'll take an example of cow, which I also take in my lecture on conscious capitalism, which is very much being talked about right now. And we have an expert here, Sada, who talks about ESG, and it's something which has become fashionable now in the modern thought. But there also, if you look at a cow is conscious. What does the cow do? What is, if you think about its dharma is basically confining to its innate abilities and what it's supposed to do. The dharma of a cow is to eat grass, produce milk, and then it produces what you call cow dung. It basically shits. Now that cow dung goes into the soil, that soil gets fertilizers, grass grows again, the cow eats the grass, gives the milk, and again cow dung. So this cycle goes on forever. So as long as the cow is doing its dharma, as long as the grass is doing its dharma, there is no disbalance here. It will continue forever. And now let's think about it. How much grass can a cow eat? Limited, right? The ability of the cow to disturb the balance is limited. It only operates in that parameter. But there is one conscious being that has great abilities to either disbalance or balance this cycle or any cycle in the universe. And you know which one I'm talking about. As humans. And that is why the dharma becomes so complicated at our stage. And there in the book I mentioned, with great powers comes great responsibilities. We have great powers because we are greatly conscious. Right? Now with that comes great responsibility, up to you whether you want to cause adharma. Adharma is anything that destroys this balance, and dharma is anything that sustains this balance. Now the problem there that you were also alluding to is that at human level, we have conflicting dharmas, right? One dharma will say do this, the other dharma will do another thing. For example, your example I'll take. One dharma, let's say your school principal says, our school should have the best result and do whatever you must so that the results are the best in the town. Now your dharma towards your principal will say, yes, I must do whatever. But then there is another dharma which you will know that no, I must not do whatever, I must only operate within the parameters of ethics. So which dharma is superior? That's why we have this eternal conflict as to which dharma is superior. And the reason why the Bhagavad Gita was spoken in the first place is because of this conflict of dharma. It's not that Arjuna did not know his dharma. He is trained by the best teachers. He is trained by Dronacharya. He is the Sarshres Dhanurdhar. He knows ethics, he knows karma, he knows dharma. Yet, despite being trained by the best teacher, in our equivalence going to the best schools, and maybe if I could say in draw parallels, Arjuna might be equivalent to 3 or 4 PhDs. Yet when he goes to the first day of his work, he's totally lost. What am I supposed to do here? And that can happen to so many of us when we go to our workplace. So the problem that Arjuna was facing is that he had 2 dharmas that were conflicting. One dharma was that of a Kshatriya, which was to fight. I will come back to that. The other dharma was to protect his family members. The guys on the other side were his family members. The Kauravas were his cousins, his own brothers. So one dharma says, protect your family members. The other dharma says, you must fight. Fight what? Fight a just war. Because if you do not fight this war, then a gross adharma is going to be established by the people on the other side. Now his problem was that he was not able to decipher which of this dharma is superior, and hence the confusion. So confused that he actually says in the chapter 1 that I want to run away from here, I want to become aesthetic, I want to go to the Himalayas, right? But that's not his dharma, and that's where the concept of swadharma and paradharma comes in. The same compassion, which is essential for a doctor, can become inhibition for a soldier. Because the dharma of a soldier is quote unquote to kill. But again, kill for a just cause. Whereas dharma of a doctor is to save life. Even if you are from the opposing camp and there are military doctors, they will still operate and treat people from the opposite camp, because doctor's dharma is that. Our job is to identify who you are. That is why that question, who you are, is very, very important. Once you know who you are, then you have to align your kriya or your karma to that dharma, to your swadharma. If you are a teacher, then be a teacher. Don't try to become a banker, and vice versa, because then you will cause havoc. And then coming to dharma sukshma. So dharma sukshma, or the Bhagavad Gita, is nothing but a lecture. 700 shlokas, 1400 lines. Shorter than the discussion we are having. 1400 lines is hardly 75 to 90 minutes of conversation. What changes in that 75 minutes or 90 minutes? Just one thing. Before that lecture, Arjuna did not know his purpose, did not know his dharma, or he was confused about his dharma. After that, he's very clear about his dharma, that I have to kill the guy on the other side, or fight rather, not kill. So I think dharma sukshma, as you were asking, it's this ability to discern which dharma is superior. And as humans, we will eternally go through that conflict every day in our life, and that is why Bhagavad Gita is so important, because it is not a philosophical discussion which is happening on the Himalayas. It is happening right in the biggest battle that was yet to be fought as per that time. It's a very practical book. 700 shlokas only, right? And if that was the biggest battle, then think of our own life. How many battles do we fight? So there are many parallels that you can draw from the Bhagavad Gita which will help you to answer that question, which dharma is superior, or what dharma sukshma means.
Yeah, I just to me, like this whole Bhagavad Gita happened. Yeah, just to add maybe to what Rahul said, he explained it really in a great detail and nicely. But like to me, it's like Arjuna in this case is like the most the primeval sort of like lost, client, like person who is sort of like lost. He doesn't know what to do, and Krishna is like the primeval psychoanalyst, like a psychologist who is trying to fix your problem, but he's not just fixing the problem, he is giving it from all multiple perspectives, because he's got all the knowledge and he can explain things. So what can be better than that,
Well, I have a slightly different take on this. So I like to call Krishna the world's first motivational speaker.
Absolutely.
Because that's what he's doing. If you think about it, it's still Arjuna who is fighting, the same Arjuna, before and after. The only difference is that Krishna motivates him to follow his dharma. So the way I look at it is, it's still your war, it's still your battle, you still have to fight it. You just need to know why you're fighting it.
Maybe I just wanted to add, I mean, there is no conflict between like being a psychologist and motivational speaker, because in practice, I will tell you, like, I mean, I talk to people, maybe not so much here because I work in the educational field, but I also have my background a bit in counseling back in Ukraine. So, people sometimes can't understand themselves, and they are sort of like, they can't achieve anything in life, and they feel that they're not moving in the right direction, they don't know where to start. So once they start, working with a psychologist, it's a simple thing, it's just like a psychologist knows how to do that. So what they do, they listen, the person has a way to find themselves, basically what we are calling finding their purpose, understanding themselves, knowing what they want to do, what they can do best. After that, those people, it was a very good motivation for them. They were reaching a lot of success in their professional careers after that. Yeah, so if they don't contradict.
Yeah, I would also like to add something. So individuals have a purpose. We are talking about dharma and swadharma. It's the same concept. Or in Japanese, we have this concept of ikigai, which is your purpose, which is my first book. So yes, individuals have a purpose, but even corporates have a purpose and they have an identity. There are corporates which exist only to make profits, and there are corporates who will put service first, right? So CSR again is an afterthought. If you talk about CSR is I have made the profit, now let me do something for charity. But then beyond that, there is this concept of ESG, which is basically you integrate your processes such that you are essentially doing that CSR in your process. And that has become such a big thought right now. And again, why I say it's thought, because again, in our philosophy, we talk about three karma shuddhi, right? There is thought, there is words, there is action. So fortunately, when we talk about conscious capitalism or when we talk about ESG, we have gone from that thought to words. A lot of people are talking about it, but we have still not gone to that action phase. So we will need a lot more conscious people to then, if you think about it, in the 21st century, what we call progress is basically undoing what was progress in the last century, right? When we talk about last century, the progress was how high chimneys do you have in your country, how fast your car can move, how soon can you unearth the earth and take out the minerals. Now we are saying, how can we do these things sustainably? The number of high chimneys you have is not defining how your corporate purpose these days, right? So again, why I'm mentioning this is because to me, whether it's individual purpose or corporate purpose, I think they all kind of merge, and that is why my next book is on that corporate purpose. So I'm writing the next book on ESG, which is basically taking this whole concept of purpose, and it has been a journey for me as well. The first book was essentially writing about purpose journeys of others, and the idea for the readers was look at others and figure out what you want to do. And then this book was, okay, instead of looking at others, look within yourself. And now I'm saying, okay, now that you look within yourself, then try to build things at scale, build corporations, build institutions which can do these things at scale. So that's the next. So my own journey goes through these books.
I want to just add one small point.
Sure.
And that is, I think my voice is loud enough. Just like my friend, when you're a teacher for 40 years, your vocal cords become very strong. So you don't need a mic. No, I just wanted to, if you don't mind, can I suggest something? Because he said motivational speaker, you said psychologist, but I would like to add that Krishna is much more than that. He's not just psychologist. You have to add some more adjectives there, because psychology just listens and then counsels, but this Krishna is everything. So yeah, I just wanted to. And motivational speakers generally have some motive behind it. Yeah, they're gonna say loudly, and speaking loudly doesn't make you Krishna.
In fact-
Definitely not. I'm Krishna sits next to me. I'm Krishna fan, so I defend my Krishna.
No, definitely. So
So you cannot say Krishna is motivational speaker. You don't
So-
deliberate it to that level. Yeah.
Yes. So I would say oftentimes those people who yell the loudest deserve to be heard the least.
Correct, absolutely. And
Right.
Krishna was speaking softly to this person, no?
Yeah.
So he is not motivational.
And also, who or when is Krishna speaking, right? In the first chapter, Krishna doesn't come and say, hey, listen to me, you do that.
Yeah.
It's only when Arjuna says, I am totally lost and I surrender unto you. So that surrender is very important. Unless you surrender, he had to go into that receptive mode before Krishna would talk to him. The other thing is, very beautiful question, who is Krishna? So, and there I disagree with you, by the way. So, the very first time Krishna is mentioned, it says Sri Bhagwan Vacha. Right? So, we need to understand who Bhagwan is. And why I disagree with you is that you say that Bhagavad Gita is not a religious book. How much more religious do you want it to be when it says Sri Bhagwan himself is speaking?
Well, it depends on what you put in the definition of religion, right? To me, religion is much more than just, lighting the diya and doing just chanting the mantra and all that. Religion is a philosophy, and philosophy comes from science, So, we agree to disagree.
Sure. So coming back to your beautiful concept. So we have a chapter dedicated to this. It says, who is God? And there we attempt this problem in multiple ways, but very, very quickly, just talking on this Bhagavan term, because that's how Sri Krishna is referred to in the book, in the original Bhagavad Gita, not in our book. It's, who is Bhagavan? And in our Indian system, actually there are very few nouns. Everything is an adjective. So if you look, even if you broke down Krishna, right, it's Krishna. So Krishna means attractive, and there is a Hindi word called akarshan, which comes from the same root. And na means possession. So somebody who possesses all the attraction becomes Krishna. Similarly, there is Ram. So in Hindi or in Sanskrit, there is this word called Ram. Ram means to derive pleasure. So Ram means somebody who is a reservoir of pleasure, right? Now Bhagavan itself has a definition. So if you go to Vishnu Puran, I think it's Canto 6. In that canto, it talks about the definition of Bhagavan. So Bhagavan is somebody who has 6 opulences. What are the 6 opulences? You need to have beauty, you need to have strength, you need to have fame, you need to have wealth, you need to have renunciation, and one I'm forgetting. Sure. Yeah, I think I'm forgetting one. But basically, anybody who has these 6 qualities, only that person is Bhagavan, and not just have them in full, right? So I'll just illustrate on that. Let's talk about Aishwarya Rai. Slightly more beautiful than average, and already we are attracted to them.
What? You're comparing her, trying to make her God or something?
No.
Okay.
So if you look at Aishwarya Rai or any famous actress or actor, slightly more attractive than others. You talk about Bill Gates, slightly more wealth than others. They already become attractive to us. Now, if you think about somebody who has all the beauty, all the wealth, how much more attractive that person would be. So that's the Krishna in essence. If you can even try to capture that in words, but very difficult to capture. Yeah, and you had this. There was another question which was there about renunciation and detachment or something.
Sorry to interrupt. You can read from your page 144 where you described Bhagavan as a beautiful Vishnu Puran.
Yeah, it's a Vishnu Puran. Yeah.
For us.
Galyna is reading, so I'm reading. I think it's
Page 144.
from where it says Krishna replied.
No,
No,
you say
before
Okay, I
that.
had already briefly mentioned to you the term Bhagavan, which is how Krishna is referred to in the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu Purana in verse 6:547 describes God with a set of attributes, someone who has the 6 opulences of beauty, wealth, strength, knowledge, fame, and renunciation in full. Adjectives have been used extensively to expound certain aspects of God. For example, Krishna means all attractive and Rama means reservoir of pleasure. The Bhagavad Gita, which is essentially a song, takes poetic liberty of describing Bhagavan in great detail when Arjuna urged Krishna to tell him about the mystic power of his opulences in full.
Yeah, and then it's a very, very long description of Bhagwan. I think it goes 10,
Yeah,
12
it's a
pages.
very
right?
powerful
Yeah,
chapter.
yeah, yeah.
So actually, I just wanted to add that the concept of dharma and dharma sukshma is quite complex, and you think you know something, and then you go out and you deal with life, and then you get the same doubts again, different doubts. Personally, we've all gone through this, and I would say that when we come to Hindu Center, we have various things happening, and throughout the years, it grows on you, because every time you learn something, you go up one step and you keep learning more, and slowly the doubt would dissolve. So please follow Hindu Center and come to Hindu Center. We have several things going on that can help us deal with this. So we are coming to the closure, but if there are a couple more questions, we would love to take those questions. Yeah, please.
Yeah. One of the things mentioned was the close association with the body. This is a question that has been bothering me for a long time, and it could be quite depressing as well. That fear of death, we all know we enter and we have to exit. And that fear of death is very, very strong in everybody. And I've seen people who are not ready, not willing to let go. And so I'm just wondering, we prepare for everything in life, job interview, travel, etc. How does one prepare for this inevitability? You can have all the knowledge, you can say, I'm not the body, I'm the soul, I'm not the mind, etc., etc. But when the crunch comes, what would Bhagavad Gita have to tell us, in short, that one can practice and reflect on from, now.
So, I'll say one thing and then I'll pass it to my learned colleague here. So, I'll just say one thing. Life is a preparation for death.
Okay.
And then I'll pass it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's right. I think this is what was that? Kamsa heard that voice, right? That you are growing older, like you were born and you're already growing old, so why are you scared? Right? Because being Kamsa, he just didn't take that, so he had to just kill everyone. Because he was fearing death so much that he was killing all of Krishna's brothers and sisters. So, honestly, I already shared with you that I was like very, very young when I realized that everybody will have to die. And I realized that I will also have to die one day. And when I came out to the street in my country, that Ukraine was in the USSR, so I looked at the people and I was thinking that all those older aunties and uncles, when I go out in the street 10 years later, they might not be there anymore. And then when I'm in their age, the people will be totally different. And I will tell you, it was so depressing that all started from my history book. When I read about the Scythian tribes, there were the tombs, they dug the tombs, the archaeologists, and they saw their jewelry. And then I was thinking, so we live, we feel, we have emotions, we have attractions, we have relatives, and then we die, and all which is left after us is the bunch of golden, some whatever, good if it's golden, right? Yeah, or whatever, like wooden or whatever. I mean, is that really how it is? And I'm telling you, this was just, it was haunting me for a few months. It's about 1 or 2 years after that when I got Gita, and I realized that, this is, and then my grandfather died, and then I was asking, so mommy, somehow I was a bit under the influence of the school also, so I said, so it's like, it's matter, nothing after that. Why do you say all these prayers? And mommy just looked at me like, and she didn't say anything. Yeah, so, but then, once you know that you're a soul, you feel better. But we are souls, we don't die, but our bodies still die, and attraction is immense. The attachment to the body and to everything which belongs to us. And recently I had like even more bitter experiences, like our friend in the blocks where we live in the condo. He just died like a couple of years back, and he was like 40 plus. And then recently I got to know that one of my neighbors, she lives in a block which is a bit far off, she passed away because of cancer. And they're young, they're like 40, early 40s. So actually, it's not that we can get ready for it, but death can come anytime, honestly. So to me, I take Bhagavad Gita again as a primeval source of answering my question. And to me, 1866 is the main thing. Just surrender unto me. Remember my name. If you remember me, I'll take you. You will be with me. There is a much better reality, hopefully.
I think I have a slightly different
Hopefully
take.
not Ukraine.
Yeah, so I have a slightly different take on this. So when we talk about death, right? It is as they said, that is the only truth about life, right? And because you kind of know that this life is precious, this is the only time you have, right? It also kind of gives you a sense of purpose. There is a sense of urgency that I need to do something because I have this much time. So yes, death is a horrible experience. Unfortunately, every one of us has to go through it. But then on the flip side, it also gives you that, I like to say, right, the irony of life is that your deadline is also your lifeline, and your lifeline is also your deadline, right? So you know that this is the deadline no matter what, and nobody knows when that deadline suddenly hits. So a lot of people will say, I will do this when I am this old, I will do this when I do that. How do you know that you will ever get the time to do that, right? So once you look reverse, when you start looking at, okay, what should my story look like, and nobody knows how long you're going to live, then you have a totally different perspective on life, that, okay, I should do things that matter to me. And then you get a clarity of purpose. What do you want to do? And you start doing it now. And that also answers the first question you asked about result-driven or effort-driven. You really don't know if you even live to see the fruits of your effort. And that's when you start really focusing on the efforts you can put, and on making sure that you are doing every day what really matters to you. Otherwise, we keep kicking the can down the road. So that's one. The other aspect I wanted to bring here, also in the book we talk about it, there are people who have gone through this so-called near-death life experience. And if you ever talk to them, they will tell you how calm they feel. And because the fear is not of the death. The fear can only be of the known. Nobody has seen death. So you can't be afraid of the death. The fear is of the known. The fear is of not having what you now have. Right? That is the fear that we have. You don't know what's beyond death. You really don't know. But if you talk to people who have gone through this near-death experience, they will talk to you about calmness. They will talk to you many things. And one of the things they will tell you is that after they went through that experience, they now see the purpose of their life. So I think some people have to go through that near-death experience to figure out their purpose. But if we can learn from their experiences and figure out the purpose ourselves, then yes, death is just a moment, right? And there is a very beautiful Hindi movie, it's called Anand. It's a Bollywood movie. There is Rajesh Khanna and Amitabh Bachchan, where this guy, Rajesh Khanna, is about to die in 6 months, and yet he lives his life very happily, and he's always trying to spread happiness. And this Amitabh Bachchan is his doctor, and he's always kind of annoyed or angry with this guy that, like, why is he not taking his life seriously? He's going to die in 6 months. And then he says, death is only a moment. What about the millions of moments that I'm going to have between now and then? I can either live thinking of that one moment, or I can live this life in the most beautiful way I can. So essentially, that's what it is. At least that is what I can tell at my age. I don't have the wisdom of the other side.
Thank you so much. We are near to closing time. I am very happy to have been in the session, and I feel that we have actually achieved what we set out to do with Pustaka in this session. At least in this session, we are very, very happy to it's 1 hour of mind-opening discussion. I feel I had to read the book all over again. Even though I had read it and bookmarked it, I had to read it all over again. So I'm very happy to have you here in the center. It's very happy to have you here. May I invite Dr. Prasad to speak?
Thank you very much for the views. Many people say, especially young people, that books are an anachronism. Books are archaic. That we have moved to a digital world, that we can do without real books. And today, this evening, this afternoon, we have proved that that is not so. Because we have proved that a physical book, a real book, which brings all of us together in discussion with the authors, with the writers, takes us to real depths of understanding, real depths of knowledge, leading us to a path of wisdom. And I think that's what books can do, physical books. You know, everybody says, oh, everything is gone digital, you know, you don't need a book. But to have a physical book that you can read and refer to over and over again is something quite different from a downloaded digital copy, which is ephemeral, is transitory. But having a physical book, and today at the launch of the book club, both of you have really delved into the subject, not only of the book that you have written, and I was about to say about the Gita itself. You know, 4 or 5 weeks ago, or 5 or 6 weeks ago, somebody wrote in the newspaper that the Gita is a myth. And that got a little bit of the Hindu community into a bit of dizzle. And what I'm about to say is that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, because the Gita is a living, breathing knowledge and wisdom for us. So I don't care whether it is a myth or not a myth. You know, that debate is totally irrelevant. And what we have is that the Gita is truly, as expressed by Rahul and Galyna, is that it is something that's relevant to us. It's relevant to us. It makes us understand why we are here and where we might be going to. So I want to thank both of you for being part of our launch of our book club. So it's been a great experience to us. Thank you so much. But I'll do that. But before that, those of you who have enjoyed being here, I'm going to be quite direct to you. If you enjoyed being here and you want to come back to here, and you want to see Hindu Center grow, and you want to see Hindu Center continue to come up with new activities, there's a little QR code standing over there. Please feel free to donate generously to the center, whatever amount that you feel comfortable with. I'm not going to dictate that to you, but it's important to us. It's important to us because that is the sustenance that we have, the only sustenance that we have to keep moving forward. Okay, thank you very much. Now it's my pleasure to give to Rahul and Galyna a little book that we have published here in Hindu Center. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we have a picture? Thank you so much. Radio earlier. So let's have a picture.
Shanti,
You can remove the book and take.
This is Ramayana.
Oh, it's Ramayana.
Ramayana is Hinduism.
This will be moved a little bit.
Yeah, better.
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I know my time is up, but I did not know what I was being gifted, but because there is 108, I'll say something about 108.
Okay.
I'll just say something. But those people, for your son-in-law actually.
Yes.
So when we talk about this 108, you would often wonder what's so mystic about it? Why this 108? I'll just leave you with some thought. So we know Earth, we know Moon, we know Sun. You can fit in the diameter of the Sun 108 Earths. The distance between the Sun and the Earth is 108 suns. That means you can put 108 suns between Sun and the Earth. The distance between the Moon and the Earth is 108 moons. Coincidence can happen once, can happen twice, can happen thrice. Now up to you. So think about this.
It's explained in the book.
Thank you so much. I just want to do one more thing. Our first entrant here for the Pustaka session gets a book free. It's your book. Can you give it to Miss Pranavi there?
Sure.
Our first entrant.
Remove your mask.
Also, can we have the honor of presenting the book to Prasadji?
I bought your book on Amazon.
Sure, you can always print the notes.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So much. I just want to close the session with a remark on the next book club event. It's on December 4th. The book we are reading is called The Hindu Shahi Dynasty. It was written by an author in Singapore. It was published by Simon Schuster Books. And we have the author here, and it's a very interesting topic because not very well known, and he has researched the topic a lot in American archives and all that, and he's come up with a book. And Anu has read the book. He said it's a very moving book. So please do join us for the next session as well.
Yes,
Thank you so much, and thanks for being here.
You're all
Please, there are snacks there.
You're all making history, huh?
Yes.
Being here on the first.
Just a closing.
Yeah, we are closing service now.
What is the book she mentioned? The fourth, what is the book she
Sarvesham swastirvavatu, Sarvesham shantirvavatu, Sarvesham purnam bhavatu, Sarvesham mangalam bhavatu, Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, Sarve santu niramayaः, Sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
We have a couple here who are celebrating their wedding anniversary today.
Congratulations.